Today I have the chance to be with the Secretary of State of Justice in Portugal. Hello, Pedro.
Hello.
It's great
Thank
to have you.
No, it's a pleasure.
Pedro, you have more than 20 years of experience in digitalization across the public services in Portugal, and you are now at the head of the Justice Department in Portugal. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think Portugal has invested quite a lot in recent years in AI activities, AI use cases for how to automate and improve public services. How do you see this in particular in terms of challenges and improvements that you have seen thanks to those investments in the justice domain?
Well, I see that there is obviously a large amount of areas where we need to improve in justice. We all want a better access to justice. So we need citizens to know exactly their rights, to access easier for justice, companies, because we need to understand, and for instance in Portugal, the registry area, everything from ID, from the life cycle of a company, from a citizen, is also included in the Justice Ministry. So also companies have a better access to justice, and we need to use all means necessary for that. So I would say the first part is it's not just about technology, because we think that technology is a key part. We think is very beneficial, obviously, but is it obviously an instrument? We need to understand what is the purpose, what do we need to change to achieve a better access to justice. So I would say that if you want to start on having and add more value to citizens and companies, we need to understand what is the main goals that we can do for access to justice. So I would put it on 3 areas, when we think about repurposing these systems and creating new services. First one is for better efficiency. When we have a lot of people doing repetitive tasks, we can do more RPA, for instance, using artificial intelligence for RPA, to make sure that these repetitive tasks can be done using machines. For instance, anonymization of court decisions, for instance, creating names instantly, for instance, in recognizing if documents are clear and safe or not, or if they have been changed at some moment. So for that, we can allocate resources where they add more value and where they feel more satisfied. The second part is helping people find information easier on a broader scale. When we think on a court case, for instance, sometimes some courts documents are more than 2 million documents. So we need to provide tools for judges or prosecutors when they want to search for relevant information on their cases, on previous cases, on anonymized cases as the ones that I mentioned. So for search information is very relevant. We need to make sure on the building of the algorithms so they don't have bias because of the search information. So that's something that we need to take care of. And the third part is understanding what AI can do for citizens. How can it benefit citizens? So we're using large language models like the GPT, and we delivered in February a service that uses the same technology as the GPT on a closed environment, with only resources available within the justice area for us to better answer citizens. Sometimes the problem that citizens feel is the enormous amount of information and services that justice offers. So they don't know where to go. What should they do? If the service is available or not? If they can go to a physical place or an online services. So what we're doing is we're developing these services based on natural language, and we are releasing a service for now with 3 areas. The first one is divorce. For instance, in Portugal, when you file for a divorce, depending on the case, if there is an agreement between the 2 persons, you can do it online with video conferencing with someone representing the state on the occasion, but you can do it online with verification of documentation, with strong authentication, etc. You can also go to ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. So depending on the case, you can go there. Or you can go to a court if obviously there is a more sensitive case. So depending on these options, we call it a practical guide to justice, can help citizens understand what are the options that it has. It does not replace lawyers, so that's something that is important. It does not replace the human interaction. It does not collect any personal information, but gives them information on that. Now we're building a second service based on companies. So when you start a company, now in Portugal, you can start a company in 10 minutes. Even from here, from Madrid, you can start a company in Portugal with strong authentication. You start it in 10 minutes. But sometimes you don't know what should you do, what are steps, the necessary documents, etc. So generative language models can also help companies to be created faster, simpler, and obviously to start a business when they want to and they feel that they have to.
Great, very interesting use cases. Thank you, and areas of development. But in order to reach this goal and to develop or have the maximal impact in those different areas, what are the challenges that you see that are basically blocking the administration, but all the ecosystem, organizations, individuals to actually achieve this?
Well, I would say the first challenge is not blocking. They're not exactly blocking, but the first challenge is skills. Because when we think on public administration, when we think about public servants, the median age is sometimes quite high. So it's obviously difficult because people don't have skills for these kinds of technology. So we need to invest a lot in training, in new education, in opening horizons. So it's very, very important to invest in skills so people can understand what are the challenges, but also what can benefit a lot them. So they don't feel that they will be replaced by a machine, it's not that, but they feel that these technologies can add value for them. So I would say that's the first major challenge, is making sure that they do understand what can be done. The second one is, and this is something that sometimes we tend to do a lot in the state, we do everything on a centralized model, doing things. The state can answer itself to all these challenges. So it cannot be possible because our society is more demanding, obviously, and on a broader scale, it is difficult for us to respond on everything. So we need also to attract the ecosystem to help us build these new services. I'm talking about academia. We can work a lot with academia. I'm talking about working with, for instance, the member states to understand and learn how can we reuse more open source projects and reuse them based on standards, based on strong authentication, etc. We can also benefit in Europe. And the third part is using the GovTech ecosystem. There is a lot of startups working in different areas, on fintech, on health, etc. And when they think on justice, they see as, or the public service, even the public service, they see as a gray area where there's nothing innovative. So that's not true. That's where a lot of innovative projects grow. And they can obviously deliver more projects for us as state, but also they can develop new business models that can be quite interesting, and they can be reused not just in Portugal, which is a small country, but reused in Spain, in Belgium, in Poland, etc. So we need to make sure that we can set up all this environment and where we create conditions for all these things to work together. So working on culture, working on a community, we cannot do this by ourselves. And the third part is working also on change management. The public service, if we want to deliver better services, we need to understand that this cannot be done by cabinet. For instance, us as members of the government saying it will be done by a decree. So we need to invest a lot on purpose. Why should we do that? Why should we change? So change management, it is not do it by one day or another. So it takes a long time, but we need to make efforts for this to change and to happen, so we have these results that we want.
And not changing for the sake of change,
exactly.
or investing in technologies just because it looks fancy. Yeah, thank you. And what's the role for SEMIC in there? For instance, you mentioned today anyone could create a company in 10 minutes digitally, thanks to the current or the past investment that have been made in Portugal, and that makes a great connection to something that SEMIC is doing related to businesses, companies, with the core business vocabulary that is a core data model describing the key characteristics, and on which we have also collaborated with Portugal and with different administrations throughout Europe. There are other use cases. SEMIC is currently investing in the link between AI and interoperability. So how interoperability is required to ensure that AI can have the maximal impact while respecting European values, but also how to make sure that AI can support interoperability through large language models and so on, supporting the maintenance and development of interoperability across member states. So with that in mind, and with those use cases that we see appearing, what is for you the key role that SEMIC could have and should have to support you best?
Yeah, well, I would say that, and when SEMIC and on the conference, as we are based on interoperability, the key essential part is that idea. If you want the only once factor for citizens and making sure that this is by default in all member states, we need to invest a lot in interoperability. This will require a lot of standards in Europe. So we need to make sure that these standards work. For instance, EID is something, and the AIDAs, the authentication, strong authentication throughout Europe, is something that is the standard. Because if you don't have that, you cannot create a company in Portugal. You cannot apply for a job in other country, etc. So that's the first part. The AI can accelerate a lot of things. So we can accelerate the process. We can accelerate the kind of interoperability that we want. We can do a lot of things based on new standards using AI. But we need, as I said, we need also to make sure that when we build and deliver this service, we're based on a legal framework. That's important. So we need to stay ahead. Platforms like SEMIC, what can help us is staying ahead even of the legal frameworks. Sometimes legal framework take a long time, and what we need to do is work together, advancing on that, making sure that for justice, for instance, we do understand that we'll never replace the judge, we'll never replace someone human on the decision, that we build these algorithms that are not biased, that are based on our values as Europeans. And this is something essential for us to build. So SEMIC, and the role of SEMIC is making sure that, for me, is making sure that we first are interoperability as default. That's the first part. The second part is accelerating through innovation, through AI, of course, because AI is something that is very transformative and can help us a lot, but using standards. And we need to work together if you want to have standards. And the third part is learning between ourselves, between all of us. Sometimes we tend to launch these projects just by idea of launching, so by idea of the innovation. But we do need to measure the impact, make sure what is the impact. It is more cost effective, people are more satisfied, the access for justice, for instance, is it better? So we need to measure the impact based on data. So what we should do also is creating these frameworks on an European level that better measure the impact of these projects. If you have, for instance, right now the recovery and resilience plan in all member states, and this requires a large funds, we need to make sure that these funds were really beneficial for public service, that we will really change the way people can access to government and public service. So for that we need impact. So forums like SEMIC can help a lot for us to establish these standards, develop and evolve that, and create this common market on that.
And so, if I understand correctly, SEMIC could have kind of a dual role while bringing this vision enabled, or very ambitious, but enabled also by concrete tests to see what works and what doesn't in a coordinated manner, so that one member state doesn't invest in those tests standing alone in its silo, but instead shares the knowledge that is learned progressively and increased progressively. And on the other hand, make sure that this basic by default interoperability should work to make sure that this vision towards which we are working is actually realistic, going there step by step, because of course we know that this vision will change and will not be the reality in 5 or 10 years time, but at least it's an ambitious goal towards which the entire community could work. Does that summarize correctly?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I think we obviously learn a lot together. So we cannot do everything differently in each member country because we have the same challenges. So we need to understand, and I would say forums like the SEMIC will help a lot of us to discuss, to anticipate what are the main issues and main areas that we need to work, that we are addressing, that we can address together. And if we see that interoperability right now is obviously a challenge, but also we know that it's essential for us to work together as Europeans, so we need to address what is the best answer for that. So we need to anticipate what will be the main challenges, even the regulatory ones, so we can do both on the regulatory part, but also on a technical part, also on a management part, to understand what works and what will not work, using some sandboxes for us to test on safer environments to make sure that it is fit for purpose or not. So we need to understand that. And when we think also about AI and technology, is exactly the same. We need to understand that we cannot work separately, we need to work together, and also benefit a lot by anticipating these problems, because as we are now developing all these systems, developing algorithms, developing services, etc., when we have the regulatory framework, we don't have to, from scratch, redesign all these systems. So we need to learn right now, work together right now, test right now, so we can advance that. We want to be on the very cutting edge as countries to the world answer of the better technology, through the better service through technology. If you want that, we need to understand that we need to work together right now so we can anticipate that, so others won't.
That sounds like a very challenging and interesting pathway for SEMIC then and the entire community. Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you a lot. It's a pleasure.